All right, well, this is the second video for the don't quit doing stand-up comedy. Find a niche. This is very important because it's a lifestyle. This is not like a job or a career that you can switch. There's too many people who think that they don't understand it, first of all. Stand-up comedy, is this, it becomes a part of you. And when you're doing it for so long, you really don't want to do anything else. And then you have an ego about it. I think that develops when you do stand-up comedy is that you're a comedian. And I know what that means to comedians. When a comedian says, I'm a comedian, you can't go backwards. It does feel like you're going backwards. If you say that, you got a job in anything else, I mean, you could become a doctor. I'm serious. And you used to be a comedian. The doctor will not be enough for the guy who wants to be the comedian. That's just how we feel. And it bled into every part of my life. When I first got married, when I first had kids, when I first got a house, I was so concerned with, I'm not doing anything except improving my stand-up comedy. If I was outside digging a hole, I felt, for lack of better words, a guilt about not writing material, not creating some new bit, expanding my world in stand-up like nothing else really mattered. I didn't want to wash a car. I didn't want to do anything, which is very tough, when you're a father. That's not the greatest thing. I never dropped my fatherly roles or my husband roles. I did everything. I'm going to say something also about that, is that number one, for me, family is first. That in the world of comedy is a problem because comedy has to be first. But for me, it never was. And I knew that. I didn't ever think it was going to limit me. I thought I could do it all. And I pretty much did it all. I'm very successful in what I do. The stand-up I'm getting calls and texts and offers to this day. And I still have the ambition. My kids are gone now. And we talked about that, me and my wife, a long time ago. What were we going to do when the kids left the house? Were we going to go out there and pursue stand-up? And yeah, I was 55 at that time. And, when that happened, when that started happening, we rented a place in New York City. Now, that's probably one of the craziest things that I have ever done. I was looking at apartments for my daughter in New York City in 2019. And I was like, we're getting a place. I mean, not a blink, not a question, not an overthink, nothing. I got a place in New York City, somewhere on 84th and 2nd Avenue. And I went to work at 50, I was 55 at that time, 55 years of age, 56 in New York City, doing basically open mics. Now, I've been a headliner for 30 plus years. I've made upwards of 10, 12, 15,000 a show corporately. And I was doing free gigs back to square one with people who were 2-3 months into it. After shows, hearing from people who said to me, you should do this for a living. You should pursue this. You're funny. That's one of those ego slams that happens when you take these steps. I'm not going to say this was a backward step. It wasn't a backward step. What it was me saying, you've never done this. I tried to move to LA in 1990, and we lasted 2 years. I really did not care as much about stand-up in 1990 as I even do right now. I didn't care. I was looking out of college for something to do interesting, and I found stand-up through Eddie Murphy, and I was interested in making money the easiest way I could. It had nothing to do with, I have a funny persona, or I have stories I want to tell, or I want to change the world, or I had a message. I mean, all the things that I think that I hear from a lot of comics, and some of them I doubt. I hate to say that. I don't believe a lot of people. I don't believe that there's a lot of people who talk about the community of comedy, and we're going to stick up for community. I don't believe that much. There's camaraderie for sure, just like any other business, but there's a lot of proof. We won't get into that. My whole point was, so I moved to New York, not move, we kept a house in Florida, and we started renting an apartment in New York City. Now, this wasn't cheap. This was $300 a month, plus, right? Everything. And getting to New York City and Florida and back and back. And, you know, I'm trying to do gigs. I am booking myself in New York City. I am booking myself outside of the suburbs, in this, you know, the boroughs of New York City. I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. There was a couple months where it was really tough, where I'm cold calling, where I am finding out every mostly comedian produced show that I wanted to get on, and just hustling, just back to my roots, right? Because my original roots of hustle were no internet. It was magazines. Okay, so in a magazine, I could find the name of a company and their phone number. I could find it in trade magazines. You could find a directory of big corporations that you could call, and then find out who's the booker, who's the marketing person, who's the person that, you know, is putting on the trade show or the party or the Christmas event. And I was really good at that. It was out of desperation in 1997 when I first really hit the wall of desperation, where I really learned to hustle hard. I knew about the hustle. I had met a guy named Shang Forbes in 1990 in California, and he was a hustler. I still have his artwork on my walls. He drew pictures of me and him. We produced our own shows at USC, at different clubs or hotels, showcases that we put on. I had never done that in Cleveland. So I knew how to hustle. So I'm going to fast forward all the way to 2019, and now it's not that I don't have money. I'm fine with money. It's not about that. Now it's about money's not going to get you into the club. It's merit. The one thing about stand-up comedy, it's based on merit. Are you funny? It doesn't matter about anything else. People want it funny, right? So to break into some of those clubs, yes, you had to know somebody just to get in to meet the booker, right? It's not easy at Gotham. It's not easy at New York stand-up. It's not easy at Broadway. It's not easy at any of those clubs. The Comedy Cellar. I mean, all those places. You're not just walking in, introducing yourself and getting a spot. So it's all hustle, all hustle. So I met a lot of comics. And then, of course, I started booking my own shows in New York City, which drew more comics to me, who also had rooms. And by early 2020, man, my schedule was really looking good. It was full. I had dates lined up through April. And these are not paid gigs, by the way. That's the next step. I mean, this step was just basically getting in to the community, right? Learning the subway. I was doing the Pat Dixon show, which was part of, I think, the Anthony Cumia network. I don't really know those guys that well, but I was doing some pretty good videos on YouTube that people liked, 80s versus now, which I still do. And that was getting some attention, and they wanted me to do it on the show, on Pat's show. So things were going pretty good. But then COVID hit, right? I come back, and shit just fell apart. And very quickly, I realized we weren't going back to New York City. There was an apartment in New York City that was going to sit there for 6 months. I paid rent on it the entire time. I called one of my buddies who was a comedian up there that I was booking shows with, and I said, I'm not coming back. If you want to go there, if you want to go to my apartment, take whatever you want. And my daughter was there and helped the other comics get rid of all my stuff. It wasn't a great thing for me because I had spent so much time, man. So much time buying furniture, getting cable, meeting the neighbors, signing the contract for the lease, learning the grocery store, going to the gym, figuring out. I was living the New York City lifestyle that I always wanted to, and it was about to collapse. So imagine that disaster at that late of age. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever have a chance to do that again. It was a tough thing for me and my wife. And, it was a very big disappointment, but it did not stop me from still pursuing stand-up. Now, the reason that New York was so appealing is because I really believe I have accomplished a lot of things in the stand-up world. The only thing I don't think I've accomplished is and I probably won't do this because I'm not good at being on the road, was doing the network of comedy clubs, the entire network of comedy clubs that has spread in the U.S. And this started in the 80s when I was doing it. I was doing some of that. I was doing a lot of one-nighters, but I was also doing, clubs in Detroit, in Cleveland, a lot in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. There was a circuit that I was on. I got on pretty good, pretty early. And you can't complain about that, man. That was, when I look back at that and say, you were on it. You just decided that you didn't want to pursue it as hard as others. And I didn't. I really didn't. I was still thinking dollars, money. I got to make some money. I got to make some money. And, making money and stand up on the road, that has to be number 3 or 4. You're not doing it at the clubs. You got to drive. You got to pay for so much on the road. Your downtime is huge. The loss of available time that you could spend, like if you were at home, you could waste some time here. I say waste because, again, nothing was important except the stand-up. So unless you were super disciplined, like I heard stories of Jerry Seinfeld sitting in his hotel room writing material. This was the 80s when I heard this. I'm like, how? I mean, typically, almost every comic I knew, I was trying to get up at noon. I went to bed at midnight. I would try to sleep as long as I could because my show wasn't until 8 o'clock at night. What am I going to do for 8 hours in Vincennes, Indiana, or Joliet, or wherever I was? And this is sometimes January, February. So it's not easy. You have got to be so super disciplined. Now, today, I think I can make videos. I would have made videos. Back then, I went to thrift stores. I bought antiques. I bought silver. I was trying to, amass wealth in every way as much as I could. So I felt like I was actually still accomplishing more than I really was because I wasn't accomplishing that much. You're doing a show in Kearney, Nebraska. Now, it was nice to go to Omaha. They had a nice club called Scribbles. Lincoln had a nice club in Nebraska. I had a buddy there from college, so that was nice. But there wasn't a lot of that. I'm going to Kearney, Nebraska, right? Which is where Johnny Carson was from. Hey, you get there, by the way, Johnny ain't there. It's nothing to do with Johnny Carson. You're in a little town and you're going to perform at a bar. It's not going to contribute one iota to the success of your stand-up unless you are doing material to try to improve your act. Now, I was very lax in that also. I am writing jokes, but I'm not really writing routines. I'm not changing fundamentally or thinking about what does the world want to hear. It was all about me and what I was able to do. Look, I was a young comic at that time, very young comic, and it was working. For me, I thought it was great. By the way, this is all reflection of a 62-year-old looking at a 24-year-old, 25-year-old, 26-year-old. Can't really do that. You don't have that opportunity. Now, for you, if you're that age, if you're 30, if you're mid-30s, if you're 40, I can look at you and say, this is where you're at, right? Unless you've already figured it out and you're moving ahead. And that happens too, because people find agents, people find managers. If you're good, really good, and you don't need to improve too much, like if you already have something, people will find you. But my stuff, I think my life was complicated with my father died when I was 14. I didn't have a lot of guidance. I came from a pretty rough background of people who were blue collar. That's where the construction comedy comes in, who thought comedy was for, guys that were weird or strange dudes, for lack of better terms. I was the weirdo, right? I wasn't the go-to guy for important things like digging holes or putting up framing or, he's a goofball, don't trust him. Don't give him, can you hear the Italian uncle in there? Yes. So I was very capable, by the way. I'm a business guy. I know what I'm doing. I just happen to have a sense of humor, a sense of whimsy and being playful and want to screw around a lot. So yeah, probably better in the world of stand-up. But here's the thing. I also enjoyed life in general. I didn't want to work so hard. And I was avoiding a lot of it. I came from the John Belushi era, right? And when you watch a lot of Animal House or Ferris Bueller, and when you grow up in that world in the 80s, you really did, I really did believe that me and my friends would be together forever. Didn't happen. Did not happen. We separated almost immediately. And they all went into corporate world jobs. They all became suits. We swore we'd never be suits. And, all those things. I kind of tried to still live. Even to this day, I still live by the rule of being, we used to call it the Cardinals. The Cardinals was a drinking group. It was just guys getting drunk, having fun, doing nothing really, nothing except enjoying life. Well, stand-up does seem like that when you're watching it, when you hear about it. It was the MTV song Money for Nothing that really put a light on that, where a lot of people thought, these guys aren't doing nothing, right? We're moving refrigerators, they're playing guitars. That was a great song of that era that talked about how a lot of people felt like entertainers weren't really working. I'm going to tell you, it is all work, mental work, where you're trying so hard to pinpoint jokes and write a routine. And comics know this. And the stress of, is it funny? Did they think I was funny? Even if the crowd laughs the entire time, you're like, nah, I was a hack. Those were easy jokes. Like, you'll never give yourself a break. Comics just don't cut themselves a lot of slack. We're very hard on ourselves. I don't know. I've never talked to upper echelon comics about this, and I don't see a lot of this kind of stuff being, talked about on the internet. But I'm sure that a lot of comics are very rough on themselves. So going to New York City, it wasn't about anything except I had missed opportunity. Maybe that's not the right thing to say. I skipped over it. I went to corporate, I made money, and I was doing some club work. I was performing a lot locally in Florida, close to my house, because I didn't want to spend any excess time on the road. I was doing corporate gigs all over the country still for construction-related shows, and I was doing my construction comedy school, which we'll talk about eventually. But I had a lot going on and did not have time. Like, I would get calls from the West Palm Improv. That's 2.5 hours from here. Wasn't going to do it for the money that they were offering me. I wasn't going to do it, And when you don't take a gig, by the way, if a booker calls you, which becomes rarer and rarer and rarer the more times you say no, unless you're hot. If you're a hot commodity, of course, they're going to be calling you no matter what you say and trying to book you. But you want to get in with these bookers young. One of my mistakes was I did not think these bookers would be the same bookers 10, 15, 20, 30 years later. If you had a problem with a booker, that's going to carry on for your entire career. It's best not to take the gig if you don't think you're going to get along with the booker. Or if you don't like the club, do your best and don't call them again, right? If you screw up with a booker, the booker's not going to forgive you. They will remember you. It is one of these things. It's an unspoken thing. You're on a list. They know who you are. They're not going to book you. It's just the way it is. If you book your own stuff, there's also the chance that the booker's not going to be happy with you. I've gone through that also. We call it blackballing in the industry. It is. You're not getting booked. And believe me, they'll talk. They'll talk to each other. Even me talking about it right now, I feel like, there's probably club owners who are going to watch this and say, this guy. That's just the way it is. But at this point, I don't care anymore. I just don't. If I want to go book an opera house right now and sell 1,000 seats, I can do it. I know how to do it. I used to do that very early in my career. And by the way, I don't have an ego about bringing someone else in, other comics. I know the process, but that's not what most comics want. We don't want to be bookers. We want to be comedians. We want to get the call. We want to be loved by the audience. all these different things that are the fairy tale of stand-up comedy. To get that, and I know that there's so many comics, and we want it. We want it. How do we get it? And it's to never quit. You can fantasize about quitting. What would I do? What would you do if you quit? I talked to my mother today about, and she's heard this since I've started comedy, and she's like, well, maybe you can do another career. And I'm like, no. I didn't mean I was going to quit comedy. Today, Ma, I just wanted to tell you, I just been doing nothing for like 3 weeks. I haven't been doing much. I haven't been taking any shows. I really believe I need to stop for a while. Just stop. Just sit back. And I'm not really stopping because I'm making videos, but stop worrying about shows. Because I want to write a brand new routine from a different perspective of how I think about something else than what I'm currently talking about. There's no money for this, folks. This is not a hobby. It's not a hobby. This is a necessity in a comic. A comic has to do this. I feel like I have no choice. I am not getting out of it. And if I have to do it from here, from this table, if I have to do it locally for a while, because, I've just felt like stressed out is again, I don't like that word at all. I'm not stressed. It's just like, I got tired of a lot of the shows haven't been so great. The bookers are all right. I would like to do something bigger and better than what I've been doing. It happens. It happens. And it can happen again. That's the hope and the magic of doing this business, is that a call could come in and, I'm going to tell you something. I was on Discovery. I traveled with NASCAR. I did commercials for Kia for years. I almost created a streaming channel during COVID for a major construction company until that did not come to fruition. I auditioned for The Sopranos. Out of the blue, I got that and almost made it onto The Sopranos. I did a lot of things in my career and got some huge gigs. And I know that there's every so often something like that happens. So I'm not quitting because I think something's happening soon. So that's it for today. We'll get back to this. I'm going to try to keep this going. Let me know. The first video's only got 50 views. It's not encouraging, and I get it. I'm not going to base it on views. I'm going to base it on, am I giving relevant information to comedians right now? And I think business owners eventually, but comedians right now, you don't understand if you're not a comic. I don't want to say that in a derogatory way. I'm just saying you don't understand the need to hear positive information to keep you in the business. There's nowhere to go for this. What is that business where the seniors mentor people in businesses because they've had experience in their business and now they're retired and they want to help you? We don't have that. I don't know about that in comedy. There's no resource for this. There's no resource for comics to get help if they're not feeling great about the business, or how do we talk to each other without, like, this whole community thing that comics want to talk about. Like, you better stay for everyone's set and clap and applaud, but there's other stuff. There's other stuff about in the community of comedy. And unless you have a buddy in comedy, thank God I got some good friends in comedy that I can talk about with. But in general, someone who's lost or doesn't know where to go or is confused or wants to quit, where do they go? There's not a lot of this. So this is what I'm hoping, that we can try to help people who are interested in staying in stand-up. It's just